Don't miss this month's live Patriot Q&A hour as John Michael Chambers hosts our Patriot Power guest, Juan O. Saban. Get your questions answered. Mark your calendars. May 28, 2026, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time sharp. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com and click on the Premium Portal Sign-Up tab. Enter your password and you're in. Not a JMC Broadcasting Premium member yet? You could be. Simply click on the Premium Portal Sign-Up tab. Enter your info, and that's it. John and Juan. Looking forward to answering your questions for the solid hour. See you there. Where we go one, we go all.
Saturday, May 16, 2026. Hello, I am John Michael Chambers, and welcome back to the monthly broadcast, Eyes on Gitmo Wartime Analysis. This can be viewed at jmcbroadcasting.com and all across our distribution network. And now, in addition to our Eyes on Gitmo panel, I'll be speaking with Mike Burns, the co-founder and president of Under One Flag, which empowers veterans and first responders with action. And joining me today for our wartime analysis and to discuss the imminent arrests and all things Gitmo is retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt, retired Lieutenant Colonel Mack, retired Captain Pete Matsu, and of course, our good friend, Mr. Juan O. Saban. And to our viewers, their biographies and contact information can be found at jmcbroadcasting.com. Just click on Contributors tab up the navigation bar on the upper left-hand side, and it'll bring you to a page. I highly recommend you to remain connected with all of our contributors and guests. All right, Freedom Fighter Summit is upon us. There it is, freedomfightersummit.u. Fraud. Get it straight, John. Thank you. Fraud Fighter Summit. Fraudfightersummit.us for those listening in the car on Spotify. There it is, Fraud Fighter Summit. This is in Las Vegas, June 15th through the 17th. If you're in America, get on a plane, get in your car, and head on over to Las Vegas. Spearheaded this event by Juan O. Saban and Mack. Get out there and meet the gentlemen. Power-packed event discussing fraud at every level and what can be done about this as we restore our constitutional republic, and justice is a part of that process. All right, important announcement, great news, great collective efforts from so many patriots and Attorney Peter Tickton and many others. Tina Peters received clemency, and as I understand, will be back on the streets of America on June 1st. We'll have Matt comment on that. Great news. And you know what? While there's still dangers ahead, and we've discussed this in previous Eyes on Gitmo episodes with our esteemed panel, and we still need to heed the call, there's so many good things happening. I think you're going to find this broadcast to be a report of breath of fresh air, in addition to some of the dangers that are still lurking around us. So, all right, I want to get into a brief monologue here. This just came into me this morning, and then we'll bring on Mike Burns and our panel guest. The illegal breach, the CIA scenario as proof of covert military operations. Within the framework of the ongoing information war, the recent incidents surrounding the office of DNI Tulsi Gabbard provides ultimate proof of two colliding power structures. According to the strict legal foundations of the United States, the Central Intelligence Agency possesses no authority whatsoever to operate on American soil. The National Security Act of 1947 and Executive Order 12333 explicitly prohibit the CIA from exercising any police, subpoena, or law enforcement powers or performing internal security functions domestically. Protecting internal security falls legally and exclusively under the mandate of the FBI and civilian law enforcement. The allegation that agents nevertheless removed 40 boxes of sensitive classification documents such as the JFK and MK Ultra files, interestingly, as that's going through a hearing right now, from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. 40 boxes. These boxes, again, from the DNI, who reports directly to the president, cannot be considered a regular agency action under constitutional law. It represents a visible, desperate measure by the deep state that crosses the threshold into open lawlessness, something that President Trump is cleaning up. Legally and operationally, this scenario can only be explained in one way within the context of this Great Awakening. It is a calculated element of unconventional warfare. By exceeding its statutory boundaries on U.S. soil, the CIA exposes itself on the public stage, delivering undeniable evidence of its own treasonous overreach. This is precisely where the invisible legal architecture of the alliance takes effect. Here we go. Activation of continuity of government through the continuity of government protocols and presidential emergency action documents known as the PEDs, initiated by the lawful commander-in-chief and President Donald J. Trump. The civilian structure is already fundamentally suspended in the background. The Law of War Manual. The moment a federal agency like the CIA conducts illegal domestic operations against constitutional leadership, the DNI, it qualifies as a hostile internal saboteur under the Pentagon's War Manual. Military jurisdiction. This domestic breach strips the CIA of any legal immunity. It legitimizes direct executive intervention by the military alliance under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The apparent theft of the files is thus a trap set, perhaps by the commander-in-chief. By forcing the CIA to reveal its illegal domestic operations, the agency provides the exact legal justification required to trigger the final military tribunals and mobilize the armed forces. The News Titans. The CIA's unauthorized action on U.S. soil serve as the catalyst driving the transition from covert operations to open military resolution. All right, well, there's a mouthful, and we'll have our military panel weigh in on that in just a moment for any clarification that might be required and for their views of that monologue. All right, so let's begin. Under One Flag is a 501c3 non-for-profit organization founded by military personnel and first responders dedicated to honoring and supporting those who protect our freedoms and keep us safe. With no paid positions, they ensure that every donor dollar directly impacts the lives of those we serve, maximizing our ability to express gratitude and provide meaningful support to our nation's heroes. So please welcome the co-founder and president of Under One Flag, Mr. Mike Burns. Nice to meet you, sir. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Pardon me, folks. Waking up here in beautiful Thailand. All right, so tell us, Mike, if you will, a bit about your background and when was Under One Flag founded and what inspired you to form this non-for-profit? I think I know the answer there, but take it away, sir.
Yeah, so absolutely. So my personal background is I was in the finance industry, and at age 32, shortly after 9/11, I came home to my 7-month pregnant wife and said, "Hey, I need to go enlist and do my part." And I initially was looking at just doing a couple of years, and I ended up doing 10 years till I was medically retired after having some serious injuries overseas in Iraq. It was during that time, after my medical retirement, that I struggled a lot. I missed the camaraderie, I missed the mission, I missed the just natural connection you have with other military members. And you go through a lot. My identity was so tied up with my military rank and my job that when I got out, I was lost and I didn't know what to do. So through that, I started getting involved with some military nonprofits out there, and was involved with a couple of them. And over the years, I just was kind of thinking, there's a simpler way to do this, an easier way to do this. Not looking to reinvent the wheel, but just wanted to simplify it and get it down to the meat and potatoes of starting an organization that was strictly for military. And then we looked into doing first responders as well because of everything happening in the world. So myself and Brian Lynn, our co-founder and vice president, sat down and kind of spitballed it, threw our board together, and we got up and running. And we've been very, very blessed with the response that we've had through the public and the community.
Wow. Well, first and foremost, thank you for your sacrifice and for your service and continued service, sir. And what was resonating in your message, among other things for me, was mission and purpose-driven life, and the it's not something one walks away from when one is at that vibrational level. And so I'm real happy you've landed where you've landed, and you're doing the great things that you're doing. Tell us what under one flag. In what ways do you assist veterans and first responders? Walk us through some of that, if you will, please.
Yes, we have a couple of different things that we do. One of the main things that we do, though, is we really focus on outdoor adventures, outdoor activities, hunting, camping, fishing, whitewater rafting. Basically, if there's any type of outdoor event that they're interested in doing, excuse me, we want to get them out and we want to get them involved. We have found, especially working with veterans, especially veterans dealing with injuries, that a lot of times, they want to isolate when they're no longer active duty and they're at home. And again, dealing with that loss of identity, that loss of camaraderie. We want to get them off the couch. We want to get them engaged outdoors with other veterans. Same thing with our first responders. It's very, it's a mental challenge to for our first responders getting off duty and coming home and just trying to shut it off. You can't talk about, really what you do. You can't talk about the things that you've experienced, and that goes both hand in hand with military and first responders because our family, our friends, the people that are closest to us just really can't understand it. So getting them outdoors, getting them engaged with other people that have the similar backgrounds, similar experiences, you get that instant level of comfort, and it gives them just a safe place to be able to sit, talk, build that camaraderie, build that relationship and those friendships that are going to last outside of out under one flag once that event is completed.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, I've gone through your website. There were some nice images of some of these hunting excursions and outdoor activities you just spoke of, and it's just great work you're doing. Um, I'm sure it takes a lot of effort and sacrifice keeping things running with all unpaid volunteers at that. Um, does your organization right now, or at any time, you think in need of seeking any assistance from the public and or other vets and first responders to assist with your efforts in your operation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, this takes money, and it takes time, and obviously, time is money. But again, being an all volunteer force, no paid positions, every dollar goes directly to support our programs and what we do with our military and first responders. Every penny counts. Every penny that we come in counts. And we maximize those funds as much as possible. For example, we did three different hunts. We did military, law enforcement, and firefighter. We took them out on a ram hunt, trophy ram hunt here in beautiful West Texas, and out of pocket, that cost us around $1,500 for all three of them to attend. So we're maximizing our funds as much as possible. If somebody's interested in getting involved, whether they want to do a sponsorship, a donation, or just get involved and volunteer some time, or if they know somebody who could benefit from being a part of Under One Flag, go to our website, check us out. There's a place where you can go and leave us and send us a message through our email. You could sign up for our events or just kind of check us out. If you got any questions, reach out to us and let us take a moment to answer those questions and hopefully bring you guys into the fold with us.
Very important, and I'm hopeful and believe that a lot of folks, as I start to get the message out on my platform, uh, hopefully you'll be getting a lot of participation in terms of donations of the financial means, as well as people coming aboard and helping in any way they can. And to that point, to our audience at jmcbroadcasting.com, you will see Under One Flag prominent logos, two of them right there under the daily war reports. I encourage you to click there, explore the site, and if the financial capability is there for you, please support this organization. I'm proud to say that we've just begun this month doing a monthly donation to do our best to help you along with your efforts. And as things improve for me in that department, I'll be sending more funds your way as well, because this is something so very important. Anything happening in the news, if you want to call it, Under One Flag right now? Any events you're in the middle of putting together, or anything you care to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple of great events coming on here in the near future. So we launched July 4th last year. And Brian Lynn, our co-founder and vice president, he's out on a decent sized ranch and he does a huge 4th of July celebration. So we're working on building that up again this year. Our firework display was actually larger and longer than the one that they put on in Dallas, just here in the little Clyde, Texas, here in West Texas. So we're very proud of that. But we have some other events coming up. We got a scramble golf tournament, and we have a few other events coming up. We have some hunts and things that are in the works right now. Some fishing that's going to be happening in the near future here as we're moving closer into summer and getting a little warmer. But yeah, we got a lot on our plate. So follow us on our Facebook page, follow us at our website. As we update these events, and if it's something that you want to take part in, if you're a military first responder, if you know somebody that might be interested in it, please share our information. And if you just want to help out, like I said, every penny counts. Doesn't matter how big or how small. Just knowing that every amount that comes in is being maximized and going straight to support our heroes here in our nation.
Thank you very much. And that is so important. Again, folks, it's a 501c3, a not-for-profit, unpaid military and first responder staff helping military and first responders. You can't think of anything better than that. And as our president say, we love Texas. We love Texas.
Amen.
And
God bless Texas.
And we certainly, you bet, Texas, one of our great states. So listen, Mike, thank you very much. Let's go back, pull up the website again to my producer. There's I believe the homepage, the donation. You can scroll down, just put a pair of eyes on that. There it is. Go to the homepage, whatever is within your means. Go ahead and click on what works for you. Those capabilities, set up a monthly, but please do help support this foundation, this organization. I can't think of there are many things we can do. We're helping the children. We're doing a lot of things, but these veterans and these first responders, without them, we don't have freedom. We don't have a country. So let's give it back to those who've earned it and deserve it. Thank you very much, Mike Burns. We'll have you back periodically on other broadcasts that I have to get you introduced, full spectrum to our wide and growing audience. Thank you, Mike Burns. Great state of Texas. All right. Let's take a look at where we head now. Where are we heading now, John? Let me see. All right. Well, let's bring on our panel. There we go. All right. We've got retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt, retired Lieutenant Colonel, also once Chief of Staff, Mr. Mack, and we have returning the great state of Florida, Captain Pete Matsu, and Juan O'Savin will be joining us a little bit later in this broadcast. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I've got a lot to unpack. Yep, thank you. Let's start with China. Okay, so we have China. President Trump on Hannity. I didn't watch the episode, but I caught the news feeds here and there on it. I understand President Trump, in a Hannity interview, fresh off the heels in China now, President Trump basically said Xi Jinping is very tall for a Chinese man, and he was central casting, perfect for a Hollywood movie. Now, excuse me, folks, not conspiratorial. Paraphrase of your Commander-in-Chief, President Donald J. Trump on Hannity. Thank you very much for that hat tip, sir. But anyway, that aside, what did you take away? We'll begin with retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt, sir. What did you take away from this trip to China, and what various ways will this have an impact on our agenda right now in restoring our constitutional republic? I think it was a hugely important meeting. What are your insights to this?
Yeah, I will agree with you, but I'll tell you that I've really evolved, as Matt knows, since I stepped away from just watching the retail version of the trip, listening to a lot of the reports, listening to the criticisms, listening to, here comes Xi Jinping threatening us with the Thucydides trap because China's rising and we're not, and on and on. But then I did some digging. And I'm going to have to give the president not a C, but more of an A+ for this, because I think this is probably one of the most important meetings between the Chinese and American leader that we've seen since Nixon and sitting down with Mao. And the reason I say that is because every single time you see President Trump backslap Xi Jinping and effusively praise him, what essentially the president is really doing is involving himself in internal Chinese politics. All is not well in China, the CCP, and the Chinese system. And you have factions that are all vying for who is going to emerge as the next leader of China. the elders are trying to thwart Xi Jinping at every step. In response to that, Xi Jinping has wiped out most of his general officers for treason, and the point of that is he's not even left right now with a warfighting general. He's got a political commissar in Zhang and not much else. And so, where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is the president is sticking the needle right where it needs to tame the part of China that is beholden to the financialists at the City of London. And that would be Wen Jiabao, that would be Hu Jintao, and they have been for years. And so that does not make Xi Jinping a prince. It just makes for a very unlikely set of bedfellows as we ask China to get on the sidelines over Iran. We quietly in the back start to tell them that the espionage is going to stop here soon and you're leaving the Western Hemisphere. And yeah, we'll keep putting salve on the Taiwan thing, but we're on the right track with China for certain. And we'll see where it goes from here. I wouldn't pay attention to much on the economic deals. China's broke, can't afford those deals. 200 jets, they can't afford 50. And how do I know that? Well, the Politburo just put out 2 weeks ago a whole set of new economic regulations, which is going to essentially steal what's left of whatever wealth is left with the Chinese people, destroy private business, run up the credit card even further, and shield more CCP members from corruption. And so they're all scattering, but just like the Straits of Hormuz, this blade is not aimed at Beijing. This blade is aimed at London.
Wow, what brilliant analysis! And I'm so happy to hear from you. An A+ on this move. I was anticipating this may have been your response, but you just unpacked a lot of stuff right at the jugular, and it also brings a validation, I will say, to many folks in our movement over the years that have spread the notion that in some capacities, Chairman Xi, Vladimir Putin, and President Donald J. Trump, in some capacities, are working together against bigger forces, and you've sort of laid that out with some very, very important, powerful specifics. Thank you, sir. Same question to retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Mack. Your analysis of what took place in China, as the president likes to say.
I have to echo what General Holt said, and there's a friend of mine that, kudos General Holt, this person thinks active duty-wise, big fan of General Keynes as far as what he's doing as the chairman, but this person has DA background, National Military Command Center background, and this person says General Holt and General Keane are the two best generals on TV. They understand it, they get it. So kudos to our General Holt, and I agree, and I think what he did in China was masterful. And just amazes me, and I'm succinct with it. I get A+, and I learned from listening to Blaine and E.M. Burlingame about ARC, right? America, Russia, China, in the world, and that sphere of influence. And I think that what we are seeing is ARC is in effect, certainly being further refined. And I agree with General Holt that Trump helped to, probably not the right word, but secure Xi Jinping's position inside his domestic politics. And I think Xi was doing things that helped to ensure Trump is stronger inside our domestic politics. So again, I give it an A+ too, John.
Excellent. That's so good to hear, and happy. A lot of our episodes, we've covered some of the darker aspects of the battles we're facing because they needed to be addressed. And this panel has given great advice to heed the call on some of the dangers. But so far, this broadcast has kicked off just the way I thought it would, with nothing but great news. And there's more great news we're going to be talking about a little bit. Thank you, Matt. Captain Pete Matsu, your analysis of this trip to China.
Well, John, I think General Holt provided a great detailed analysis. If you look at it from a bigger picture perspective, what's one of Trump's consistent themes, and that is that he is anti-empire and he is pro-individual sovereignty, whether that be at the individual level or at the more corporate or nation state level. And so I think that he's executing that same philosophy as he deals with China. If we look at the cutting off of the oil from Venezuela and from Iran, that was providing China an unfair trade advantage or manufacturing advantage. So he's cutting that off, making essentially them play on a level playing field with the rest of the world, the United States, America first being preeminent in that, in Trump's efforts. But yeah, I think it was a great visit, and I look forward to seeing more fruit from that visit.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We got an A+ across the boards. Great news for America. National Prayer Day coming, July 4th coming, and a lot of great things happening right now, and including Tina Peters. Real quick, Matt, do you want to weigh in on, give us a quick soundbite of what just took place in the clemency and freeing, finally, of incredible hero and warrior, if you will, Tina Peters?
Sure. I know her both professionally, and she's a dear friend, dear friend. And Polis, Governor Polis, commuted her sentence, gave her clemency. So it's parole, which will start on 1 June. And the goal was just get her out of there, right? And I know Peter Tickton and the legal team, they also still they're going to follow that presidential pardon up through SCOTUS, so that in a larger interpretation, the presidential pardon will apply writ large, that any president, hopefully the Supreme Court rules this and clarifies presidential power, which evidently it was back in the dawning of our country when the president pardoned you. That was for any pardon against anything in the United States. It didn't have to be federal, it could be state. The president pardoned you if you were subject to the jurisdiction of the United States of America, including the states and territories. So she will be released 1 June. I think she'll be on not probation, but monitoring for 3 years. I'm sure Peter Tickton and group will work on that. And we have already engaged. You talked about the Fraud Fighter Summit. We've been letting Peter Tickton and others know that should she be free, we wanted her to be the belle of the ball. Didn't have to say a dang word at our summit here in the Ahern Hotel, 15 through 17 June. She could just sit there and soak up the love. But we are going to do our best to have her there. And I think it's divine timing, John, in that we're also going to premiere, of course, Dark Horse, the movie that Caviezel says that he thinks is best acting, got the best acting out of him. I don't know how you surpass playing the role of Jesus Christ, but he plays Bolsonaro in this film, and what happened to Bolsonaro. And we're going to have Eduardo Bolsonaro at the event Monday evening as well, and it's going to tie into that, what they did to President Trump, what they did to Tina. So it's all good news, and if all works out, she will be at our summit, John, 15 through 17 June.
That is great news, and let's hope and pray that you all can pull that off. You're right, the camaraderie and love in that room will just blow the roof off the building. It's just what the doctor ordered. Thank you for sharing those updates. Dark Horse, is that the film with Caviezel? Dark Horse?
Dark Horse. It's the movie about President Bolsonaro.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to take us through another subject here. Juan has often stated that perhaps President Trump's legacy, when all is said and done, may be restoring sound money and free and fair elections. So let's discuss the current state of affairs in these two categories. Elections. We've got a hot mic to our producer. I think it's Sandy. Anyway, let me back up and see where I'm going with this. Again, Juan has stated the legacy of Trump may very well be restoring sound money, which we're in the process of doing, not done completely, or maybe, I don't know, as well as restoring free and fair elections, another work in progress. We'll begin with the economic and financial related aspect of that. Retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt, do you care to comment on these two points?
Yep. Look, if we're going to go to sound money, there's no time like right this second, because you've seen a lot of reporting in the news about frothy bond markets, a shadow private banking crisis. And this doesn't mean little firms, you don't know who they are. Just last week, JP Morgan pulled back on about 25% of KKR's credit facility. That's a lot of money. That's nearly $1 billion. And so things are tightening up all over the place. But where I would direct everybody's attention as the canary in the coal mine is yesterday, the bond markets went absolutely bananas. The 10-year long bond or the 10-year mid bond was up 13 basis points. That's historic. It's happened before. It happened in 2008 and went up that fast. But if you look at every single chart, financial chart, macro chart, your Federal Reserve charts, and overlay them with the 2008 timeframe, they're looking eerily similar. The reason they are is because of the nutball of this debt, this shadow banking, private banking, off-book debt crisis that is up into probably between 30 and $42 trillion. No one knows for sure because of undeclared stuff. But I want to link this to a geopolitical fact. You cannot take out the City of London and the financialists and the globalists as a sovereigntist without getting at this and without going after their money. And President Trump did that when he went after the cartels first, dried up money laundering, hammered money laundering under Scott Bessent in the Straits of Hormuz, destroyed the Lloyd's of London monopoly. 7 banks sanctioned. One is basically going to be out of business. That's Ember in Switzerland. And so you see the attack vectors coming. Well, you can't just leave the American public to pick up the pieces in a global financial crisis. So what I estimate, and here comes the speculation on my part, is as the bond market goes nuts, I think we're probably going to see some sort of cutover into the treasuries, stable coins, a lot of the concepts that Scott Bessent has been talking about, which may re-underwrite the dollar. I don't know how clean it'll be. And when you do something like this, when we change a money system over without a big war, I don't think we've really seen that happen. World War I, World War II, our Civil War, the Revolutionary War, and what was going on in Europe with refinancing all follows this pattern where the globalists run out of money, they run out of collateral, and they start a big damn war. Well, it's not happening this time. So it's really up to President Trump and Scott Bessent and their team to move us as safely as possible into a new system. I think we're on the eve of seeing just that.
Thank you. I'm going to stay with you, General Holt, on some follow-up on that, and then we'll take it through the panel. I also we see recently Powell's out, Kevin Warsh is in, and again, the president published on Truth Social probably a month or so ago. Kevin Warsh, I love everything about him. After all, he is central casting. But I find it odd that Warsh will be the 17th Fed chairman. 17th. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just a coincidence. I don't know, but
yeah, at least he's not the 33rd, right?
Yeah, you bet. And 17th, in my opinion, probably the last one, as the Fed is losing its control. It seems to me, General Holt, the Federal Reserve and the IRS, for that matter, have been already dismantled, or certainly are being dismantled, by returning sound money back to we the people and doing away with many taxes, tax on tips we hear about, tax on Social Security, tax on property, and mainly income tax itself. I'm going to continue on setting the stage here on the economy and have you weigh in before we talk about the elections. Then we'll take it through the panel. March 26th, as this panel well knows, Treasury Department did, I'll call it a press release. Not anywhere in that document did I see the words Federal or Reserve, and it all talked about the new Treasury note, or $1, where the first time in history a sitting president will have his signature on there. That, of course, being President Donald J. Trump, and of course Secretary Bessent. We have the central banks. I'm setting up a lot of darts at the board here to turn it over to you, sir. Central banks. We got the naked short game coming to an end, catapulting silver and gold. I know it pulled back heavy overnight, but that's part and parcel right now. Q, in my opinion, the greatest open source military intelligence operation of our time, stated, and I'm almost quoting, gold will destroy the Fed, many years ago. I believe we're seeing that now. So, and then lastly, there's the world of crypto you touched on, the QFS, the Clarity Act, about to make it to the president's desk. The oil dynamic has changed. As you said, you severed everything, emptying to the coffers and control from London. How would you best describe, General Holt, what is taking place right before our very eyes, while most of the population, truth be told, has no clue about what's going on? And you stated something a moment ago that's really powerful and fundamental and unprecedented, and that is that we're in the, I love the term, re-underwriting the dollar, the new currency, the constitutional God's money currency, re-underwriting the dollar without gargantuan kinetic wars that we've had to. So when people complain that gas is up temporarily, if that's the only problem we have on the streets of America to re-underwrite the dollar, consider it a blessing. I just unpacked a lot of things there with Wash and all that. What are your views from a 40,000 foot view? What is actually taking place here that most people, with all due respect, don't have a clue about?
Well, they might not have a clue about it, but I'll tell you what, everybody who does have a clue about it owes the American people grace. Everybody comes to their awakening at their own time. Many of them are going to get to this awakening with a lost job very soon. And it has been happening throughout the year. We have negative job growth. The jobs we are seeing are not good. We have globalist tentacles all throughout our economy. We see rampant abuses in H-1B visas, taking people's jobs who earned them fair and square. And so what I would say is the task of President Trump and his team is mighty. And we may not get it all right because this has never really been done before, is to right the ship after we were taken over by the financialists in 1871. They started our Civil War for us with nefarious operations under the Buchanan administration, and then underwrote the backside of, like they do everything. They bet on both sides, they profit. Well, all empires, when they crash, and there have been no exceptions, the globalists or the highest financialists in the rung start to steal everything. And that's what we're seeing right now. And although you might have seen Larry Fink on a stage with President Trump in Beijing, his organization and others are adamant that they want to move to fully tokenizing everything, pumping up assets, pumping up the inflation. And my friend Mitch Wexler will tell you himself, this creates people who are getting priced out of their properties, can't pay the property tax. And we have a 42 million households at risk of foreclosure right now in a $5.2 trillion theft scam. And so now let's get back to the good guys. The good guys are looking to move us out of the fiat, and they're looking to take away the opportunity that the globalists have to take our assets. But you know as well as I do, John, that the thieves run deep in the deep state. And when you get to the congressional staff level, seemingly good things like the Clarity Act can have amendments slipped into them at the very last second, like Section 310 of the Clarity Act, which essentially opens the door for some future rogue presidency to enact a CBDC and social credit scores and social ID. And we also see rogue organizations run by folks that right now are very, very admiring of Trump in many different ways, and that is your technologists. Everything from these AI data center folks, the tech oligarchs, the Flock people, the Palantir people, they all want mass surveillance. If you tie that to the other systems, well, then we'll be post-Constitution. And so at some point, what I expect, if we're going to take an honest run at returning sovereignty to the American people in their wallets as well, and reestablishing the Constitution, the real one, as the law of the land, then those players around the periphery, even if they seem to be close to Trump at this point in time, will have to be dealt with in some fashion or form. And so I think we're on the right track. Certainly, this system is at its end, it's terminal, and there is no way around it. And then the only thing I would say is not everyone is convinced of that, because not everyone is awake. Right now, they're reading headlines that they better get worried about hantavirus and lockdowns. And so I would, as an American in your communities and neighborhoods, show grace. Just because somebody wasn't smart enough to buy that silver coin because they could, or that gold coin, or have some other means of earning a living in a very turbulent period, doesn't mean that they don't merit your grace. No matter how bad they stuck up for BLM and all the other happy crap in 2020 when we watched our country come under great siege in this World War Next environment, and that includes COVID.
Great analysis. Thank you, sir. Last question. We'll take it to the panel. General Holt, I know we're not date specific. We're more event driven, but we do have two specific dates here, which I'll talk about. We have May 17th, just a day or two away. Redirection through prayer back to God, which is what founded this nation. We have the July 4th. We have a new currency. My question is this, and I realize it's a crystal ball question, but there are a lot of folks that I have a lot of respect for that have indicated they believe on July 4th, one of the big announcements our president and commander-in-chief will be making is the issuance of this new currency. Is that going to be, in your estimation, as soon as July 4th? Isn't that, or is that something that's going to be more of a longer time frame before we've transitioned?
I think if you
expect anything?
I think if you got a correction in the markets, a serious one, 50% or more, you would see them not worry about July 4th, that whatever they got planned, they got to go with. The other part I would say is, I would include in your list of things that we should see happening, and I'm going to be a broken record from previous broadcasts. If we don't get to this season of accountability and a full roundup that doesn't depend on the slow grinding wheels of the DOJ, we're going to be in real trouble by mid-July. And I hope that what we're going to see we see little bits on the periphery, but we need to see mass accountability with processes and functions, hence the name of your podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for raising that. And I'm going to take us there in a follow-up topic in just a moment. Thank you, General Holt. Mack, you've been listening to the dialogue here. What's your 40,000-foot view analysis to this whole economic shift? And that Juan has told us, I don't have the quote in front of me, but, of all the things that we've endured and all the things that are among the greatest challenges, which General Holt pretty much concurred, re-underwriting the U.S. dollar without a kinetic war. What's your view of all this economic stuff? Because quite important.
It is, and I would invoke two things. One is a dear friend of mine actually lives close to where Pete lives, and his name is Steve Hertzberg. Back in the day, he started Volt Watch after the 2001 election. He then became Election Science Institute. This man has forgotten more about election integrity things than some of us even know. And he saw that what they were doing with elections, predetermined outcome, and controlling us, controlling the people, they were going to do exactly in the financial system. And he was sounding that alarm in 2011. After he had really understood what they were doing in the election system. And I would echo what General Holt said and just put it in simple Marine Corps terms, and the three of us are all pilots, we understand this. What President Trump and his team, Dissent and so forth, are trying to do, I think, John, imagine you're flying an aircraft, you're flying an airplane, and you're trying to repair and make better the airplane while you're flying it. You can't land it. You can't stop it. You can't bring it into the hangar and call a timeout and get your night crew on there to get a lot of maintenance miracles done. You got to do it while it's still flying. While we put it in the terms of you got to maintain whole speed, like on a ship, so it still has direction. Well, this nation, this economy, still has to be moving while you're doing this. And God bless him, because as General Holt said, and I think Pete said, he's threading this needle on how do I do this, and how do I do it without crashing the plane as I'm trying to repair it in flight. It's not an easy thing, John, and so far he's doing it. And I'll just echo. General Holt talked about Mitch Wexler. He also is going to be presenting in person at our June summit, and you're seeing the healthcare fraud, the Act Blue fraud, the hospice fraud, pales in comparison. They're talking billions. As General Holt indicated, minimum, I mean, verifiable receipts, you have 5.2 trillion in fraud with bonds, right? Bonds. And if you look at that with member banks of FDIC having to have 60% of their reserves in bonds, it could be as much as $17.1 trillion. Even Bannon agreed with me. The fraud that will put us belly up if we're not careful is the bond fraud.
And again, everybody get on out there to Las Vegas, June 15th through 17th, and learn about what's going on and how to combat this. Matt, that was a great analogy. Thank you on the aircraft flying midair and having to be repaired at the same time. You know, I'm sure everyone on this panel has a copy of the book Art of War, and I think we should add underneath the author Sun Tzu and Donald J. Trump under the Art of War for being able to pull this off. Of course, we're not out of the woods yet, but unbelievable. Captain Pete Matsu, thank you for your patience. Your view on this subject at hand.
Well, John, I think that a couple of points I would make in addition to what General Holt and Matt have said is, one is that why is it so important that we have sound money? Well, because the money represents the fruits of our labor. It represents the in a spiritual sense, our very essence, what we have been gifted to do. We are able to do these things, and that translates to into something called money, a value, right? So if the scales are dishonest, and dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord, then that we have a serious issue. And in fact, I would submit, I mean, you look at the very word bond, right? Bond and bondage are have the same root. So you look at the many ways that we have been subjected, and I think the American people, and for the most part, I was for many years completely blind to how we have been put in bondage or in slavery. The very term mortgage, death pledge that we sign our own death pledge. Interesting they chose that word, but it all relates to money, and how do we get out of that, right? If you look at the importance of the sound money, we have the concept that trying to fix the airplane when we're flying, as Matt said, and get us from a fraudulent system, an illusion system, to a sound money system, right? While we're flying, it's going to be bumpy. And I think the American people need to, and the audience, I hope, will expect that. And as General Holt said so well, we have to have grace for those who haven't seen the light quite yet, and maybe haven't prepared as much as some of us have. But in that is an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity because money magnifies, right? The very essence of who we are, when given more, right, are the how we behave is going to be magnified. So I would pray and hope that people who have prepared, when they see people struggling, as General Holt again said, people may lose jobs, that are we there to help? Or are we focused solely on ourselves and what we've stockpiled? Or are we going to have the heart to help those around us in our community? Because that will defeat the enemy.
So important and so well said. Thank you, Captain Pete. And I love how you break down the derivation of words. Words have meaning and they matter. Bond, bondage, mortgage, death pledge. Folks, we've been debt slaves from the cradle to the grave by design. By the way, to the point of General Holt and Captain Pete, speaking of the grace that we need to display to those that are awakening to some of the problems that are coming our way. I have a show, just to plug this in real quickly, this audience may not know about, every Wednesday live at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, where I bring on some military, but by and large economic experts, where we discuss the dangers and the opportunities through this transition. For those that do have assets, what they need to do to safeguard them. Now, we don't give specific advice, but we speak in terms of education, information, and concepts. Anyway, wealthcoachuniversity.com, 10 free video modules there. I encourage everybody to go there. But anyway, thank you to the panel. Now, here we go.
Hey,
we touched
John,
on this.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
I was going to say, if I could add one thing, and it's somebody that E.M. Burlingame, I mentioned him earlier, that General Holt introduced me to. Interesting background. I mean, financial background, military background at a older age than most would go into the military. Great thinker. He had a concept that I think really pinpoints this. He goes, the battle we're in, it's against the forces that think or fight for the individual being sovereign, and those that think debt is sovereign. And I think that really sums it up.
No kidding. No kidding.
Yeah,
Thank
John,
you. You know,
I have one real quick too, is that we look for people that are struggling with hope, right? As we try to fix the airplane in flight, and what's that going to mean for me, right? I firmly believe, this is my view, everybody should pray about it on their own, that God is in this. And why? Well, you look at things that are just too coincidental to be a coincidence, right? For example, we talk silver. I'm a physics guy, right? What's the atomic number of silver? 17. What's the symbol for silver? Ag, 1-7. What's the atomic mass of silver, right? 107. So you look at these things and you can't make them up. And then when you factor in the biblical perspective, right? A slave was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for weighing in. Anybody else have inspirational weigh-ins? Interrupt me at any time. Thank you, sir. Several episodes ago here on the Eyes on Gitmo panel, I wanted to tap into UFOs, and we launched the question with Blaine, but we ran out of time. Well, let's spend the next 5 or 10 minutes on this now, because our commander-in-chief has taken us there. UFOs. It's my understanding that these files have been there since Eisenhower. Every president has had access to these top secret security files, Area 51, etc. But I have a viewpoint on this. Disclosure isn't just about the aliens. It may take on, as you think through this, take on the challenges of everything we believe about God, the Bible, and reality itself, as we come to learn of other existences beyond this planet Earth. What do you make, General Holt, of this first tranche of information the president has put out? What do you personally know of concerning places like Area 51 and related matters that you're privy to share with us?
Yeah, I think we have to start with the public. The public is not enamored by this. No matter how many mainstream news stories that come out, no matter how many interesting videos come out, the news anchors are 80,000 times more interested than their audiences on this, because Americans and people around the world are in this fight of sovereigntists versus globalists, and they're hurting really badly. And we see it every day. And so when you just got laid off from your job, you don't know where the food's going to come from or if it's poisoned. You're not sure if that tick that bit you is going to make you allergic to meat. You're pretty sure you don't want hantavirus, but don't know how to avoid it. Well, if ET shows up and says, "Hi, it's me," you're going to go, of course, who cares? And after talking to my friend Stephen Greer quite extensively, because he just ran the disclosure conference in DC, which really went quite well. Yes, we have. There are other life forms out there. There's no question about that. And maybe there'll be enough disclosure for people to kind of accept that. But where we need to dig deeper is in why is the government, most specifically the unelected part of our government, withholding information from us as some sort of self-appointed babysitter that's not elected and won't even adhere to the president's directions on this and previous presidents. That the president, I have heard an intel person say the president doesn't have a need to know. That's not the America that we set up. That's not what our founders set up. So the first arm wrestling that we need to do is the disclosure piece. And yes, we got a nice little appetizer and some interesting things, but from the folks that I talk to routinely, we are probably, if we did get all the information, my understanding is we're probably going to be very upset that there are technologies available to us that would create a world of abundance. And I'm really speaking about 0 point energy, that would create a world of abundance that would have us all furious, that we would all think back to our grandparents and the toils that they went through, all to put money in a gas tank to grow some food out of the ground when that abundance could have been right there. I'm hearing this, but time will bear that out. The other part, when we get to the biblical aspects of this, we may find new truths that don't contradict the Bible and our creation, but affirm every single lash-up of quantum physics to God that has been written about, talked about, and that there may be incredible affirmations, but that it will probably put some folks in some religions or different belief structures into a difficult position. And again, we get back to the pinhead cubicle warriors in DC who take it upon themselves to go, we can't have that because there might be a great war over this. And like our founders, I think that we need to adhere to first principles, the Constitution, respect our inalienable rights. See that little pun I put out there, and really demand that this is a self-governed people, and we demand to have the information, good, bad, or ugly, and then we also want to know about technologies that could be used to spoof aliens, because I can certainly see a deep state with its back to the ropes having to try to resort to some sort of microwave thought embedding or holograms or whatever they want to do. This is all stuff that's on the books. They've done it to Cuba. Why wouldn't they do it to us? And so I'm not going to jump into the tinfoil hat realm, but I certainly think that Americans can accept that we're not the only things in this universe. But we may want to understand our universe much better without the help of the cubicle warriors.
You raised some great points there. It's a fascinating time we're living through, folks. Would it be a fair statement to say, General Holt, that taking a look at the modus operandi of this administration on the various programs that have been deployed and are being deployed across the broad spectrum of issues, that the modus operandi for the release of this information, sensitive information, will be done drip, 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 and then flood later? I think, what do you think? You think that that's probably what's happening? Each time they release information will be a little bit more ramped up?
Yeah, I think there's a pacing to everything that they're working on. And it's just like going back to the Epstein files. Did we really spackle over the Epstein files, or is it that they're more appropriate in this strategy at a later time? It's just hard to say. But all war plans have their timing and their pacing and their timelines that are optimal. And so, is it that could be fine? The urgencies really are the financials, and the urgencies are the accountability piece. Everything else to Americans is absolutely secondary and tertiary, and it's reflected in the political base. President Trump knows very well that he is running away from the base temporarily to go to these things that, and most Americans who don't really have a feel for this stuff will immediately go, oh, I get it now. And the oh, I get it now phase will be fine. It gets back to my other statement that those people will need some grace too. It's just fine. But I think all things in good time. I just hope the administration's got a good sense about the clock on the accountability thing, and then I think all things are possible.
I'm sorry, you may have cut out. You hope the administration has a good sense of what?
A good sense of timing about the accountability requirements and the economy, and then I think all things are possible.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we are going to get to justice and elections before we close out. Mack, sir, how would you like to weigh in on this incredible time that we're all living through? UFO release information, if you want to call it under that banner. What do you see happening here?
Well, I flew Prowlers, so we lived in that realm of the speed of light. So, although we are very slow aircraft, I would say something that General Holt said, and I imagine Pete would say this too. I think most Americans would go, yeah, so what? We know. We know there's something there. You tried to hide it so badly in the past. But right now, the more pressing thing is my paycheck, the economy, bankruptcy, the bonds, holding people accountable. So I think it's going to come out. And I think what Trump's trying to do, my impression, is release it in a way that doesn't play into the deep state's hands of what they might want to do. And I would say in addition to the overt stuff you're seeing, the Tic Tac video and so forth, and I've talked to some of those Navy pilots, and Blaine, your thoughts, what's his name? Buzz, is it Patterson, Air Force officer, was at the White House for a while. Under Clinton, he goes,
yeah,
but
Buzz is great people.
These Navy guys keep seeing all these UFOs, around the carriers all the time. But John, I just think most Americans would go, yeah, so what? And I would add these two things. Somebody who's a dear friend of mine, who's a friend with Buzz Aldrin, and he had a comment, and Bigelow here once said this: UFOs, not from where they're from, but from when or what dimension.
Wow. Yeah, well, a whole new set of scripts for Rod Serling. Let's bring him back. This is incredible. Thank you, Matt. Captain Pete, would you care to weigh in on the extraterrestrial world, the galactic federation moving through time and portals and whatever may be coming our way?
Well, John, so much of this is narrative control and focus on sound elections and sound money. And we've got to get those two nailed down first. Everything else beyond that is, immaterial if we don't get those solved. And that gets back to, keys to sovereignty, like we've been talking about in this broadcast. And individual sovereignty is preeminent when we focus back on the Constitution and understanding what the Constitution was supposed to provide us and hasn't for a long time because it's been hijacked. So getting back to that sovereignty first and foremost with sound elections and sound money, and we can tackle the other issues. Are they important? Yes, but not without getting to those two key issues first. Now, in terms of why would the enemy want to do this? Well, you talked about distractions, right? So I think what Trump is doing is he's narrative control, as I mentioned it in the beginning, is he's trying to take away their power to steal the narrative by getting out in front of them. Understanding what they may do. I think Juan's referred to Hillary making the statement to Podesta, is it time to play the alien card? Well, that is clearly a narrative that they were going to try to use to gain everybody's attention and steal their thoughts away from something else that they were doing, because these people are illusionists. They want you to look over there, not over here, kind of thing, right? So keep the focus on where it needs to be. Is there other life? I think there's certainly, as General Holt mentioned, there's enough in the Bible that the majority of us have that leads to that. Just go read, Genesis chapter 6, right? And it talks a lot about that. And I've recently been diving into 1 Kings, chapters 16 through 19. And he talks about Elijah and the prophets of Baal. I'll read up on Baal. What is Baal? Baal worship. Okay. And what's in front of Wall Street? A bull, right? The bull is Baal. So many of these things tie together, right? And as we go along, I think Americans will understand more of that and understand what these sickos, many of whom are in leadership positions, are actually doing that relate to the prophets of Baal. And one point on that, I think people have gotten hung up on some of Trump's language and things. Well, we are a captured operation here. We're on occupied territory here in the United States because the enemy is in many cases within. So what has Trump done? Well, a lot of times he's not speaking to us. He's speaking to the enemy. And if you look at how Elijah taunted the prophets of Baal, when he taunted them about the sacrifice and why their God wasn't sending fire down on the sacrifice, he taunted them and they started cutting themselves. So these 450 prophets of Baal started cutting themselves. That weakened them. They were severely weakened to the point where now they could be taken captive and slayed. I believe that is exactly Trump's strategy in many of these situations. He's taunting them, getting them to expend energy to do things they wouldn't normally do, and weaken their position so they can be exterminated.
Great analysis. Boy, brings a whole heightened meaning to the art of war and fifth dimensional chess. You mentioned earlier Hillary talking about Podesta. This is the time to play the alien card, and trumping that would be a case in point on the move. This is great discussion from the panel on UFOs, and thank you for getting all that on the record. I do want to move forward now. As a nation, in order for us to move forward as a nation, two things must happen. Those involved with the disruption and outright overthrow of an election must be held accountable, and we must restore free and fair elections, beginning with the midterms coming up. We don't have a country. Okay, so we got Comey, tip of the iceberg. How are we progressing in, General Holt, in A, justice? How are we progressing right now? And B, getting the midterms right? I've got some follow-up, but we're going to unpack a lot here. But let's begin there. What's happening in the world of justice? Okay, we got the optics of Comey. We know about all the other low-lying fruit, I'll call it. We know the names: Brendan Clapper, Comey, the Russiagate clan. We've known this for years, but now it's official. Where are we at in the justice game? You mentioned earlier that it would seem that something big must take place, perhaps before July 4th, certainly before the general election, the midterm election. What's your take, an update on justice?
Yeah, timing wise, I think you put too much advantage into the enemy with their mainstream media outlets if you go beyond mid-July, but that's one man's opinion. I'm very encouraged by a few things. Comey, Clapper, and Brennan are in some facet or form, albeit lesser charges, in the process. Well, that means a lot of things. If you're in the process, it may not necessarily mean we're going to be locking you up for writing on the beach 8647, but it may mean that since you're in the process, you can't leave the country. And since you're in the process, we get to see every single thing you do, surveil every single thing you do, because you have criminal considerations going on. Well, that's interesting because it makes it sticky for them. And they are key players in this. They're not senior leaders. They're not puppet masters. They're just key players. And key players are interesting because key players, worms like Swalwell, will always want to catch a deal. They'll always want to turn because these people, they're not even loyal to themselves. So where I think we are is, I think the table is set for something to happen of a grand nature. But to me, I can't see, and maybe Pete or Matt would have a different view or a different idea. I can't see a path to that type of accountability unless an emergency order comes out. The government is declared to be incapacitated, and the reason I say that is how many are co-opted, how many are blackmailed, paid off by foreign sources. How much of that would involve DC? Well, we've heard a lot of things from guys like Assange, Snowden. Even Pam Bondi, in one of her testimonies, said if we really nailed down the Epstein list, 98% of the government would have problems. Okay, fine. The American people are, so be it. Well, there's something over the horizon that has my attention that could be a very good thing. And I don't know that I'm going to be right on this, but it is peculiar to me that the president called for a a pre-midterm convention of the Republican Party, not a pep rally, not a rah-rah thing, actual delegates going to a convention. But why would you need that if we already know who the primary winners are by that point in time and who's going to be in the elections? Why would you need delegates to come pick new candidates? Unless so many people were rounded up that we essentially did not have a Congress because so many people were being examined. So when you look at the Q post, to get to that, we have it all. Well, if we do have it all, then I could see something like that unfolding. But then let's look on the other side of this. If for whatever reason, the enemy makes classified quiet threats, there's kinetic action against Americans, terror cells, I don't know, ticks, Hanta, Ebola, whatever they throw at us. We just saw 2 days ago in Alabama under a reservoir, they found a bomb. How many of those are on American infrastructure right now? We already know about globally, you've got 45 oil and gas facilities, storage and refineries that have been either destroyed or partially destroyed in the last 90 days. So if for whatever reason the attempt to do the accountability piece is blunted and it's not at sufficient volume and velocity, and this will sound very bombastic, but let it soak in and you might agree with me. If we don't get this done, we're going to lose this republic. I guarantee you.
Thank you very much. A couple of follow-ups with General Holt before we take this topic of justice through the panel. Civilian versus military. I know it's on the minds of a lot of folks. Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, and the like. No statute of limitations for crimes against humanity and treason, I understand. How busy would you say GITMO and other processing locations are these days? And what do you expect to come later in 2026 and 2027 concerning civilian versus military? And let's have a brief comment on the healthcare attacks against us and justice being served there.
Well, if it's going to be civilian, the last indicted criminal will be indicted probably about the year 2446. And that's how slow that system would end up being. So that means you don't have those traditional means to you. It has to be a military way, and it has to be something that is of the velocity that nearly doubles the speed of what we saw in Nuremberg. But we're talking, people will go, that's grandiose, that's harsh, that's terrible. How could you say something so strong? These people are guilty of treason to the nation. They are guilty. If you go back to 9/11 and we walk through that garden, they're guilty of killing thousands of Americans. They have stolen trillions. And so before we get all weepy-eyed about a bunch of people being rounded up and giving them express service, I would say that our founders, and during those days, oh, they were far harsher on folks that were treasonous, and justice was swift. Well, guess what? The military justice system is fairly swift. It's not without its kinks, and no system is perfect. But it's only our union. May as well save it. It's like I used to tell co-pilots who are a little freaked out by the loss of a couple of engines. It's like, hey, we got the rest of our lives to figure this out. And I would say the same thing for the nation. Hey, we got the rest of the time of the republic to figure this out. It's only our grandchildren. So I would say it's worth any expense, any punish, or any suffering that we have to endure to reestablish self-governance in this nation and an adherence to the Constitution and a respect for our freedoms.
Thank you very much, sir. Taking the same line of questioning to Mack, we're talking about justice, civilian, military. Are we making a lot of progress, and what do you see happening potentially before July and certainly before the midterms?
I think there's progress being made, and I would have the audience look towards Memorial Day, I would say, for Tulsi making revelations about significant foreign interference deep into our election system, not just voter registrations or the voter registration database or fake driver's license from China and so forth, but across the whole election ecosystem, John. And that is registration, validation. When you go to the polls and you check in the poll books, if you will, and they got to go back to paper, by the way, tabulation and reporting the results in. So I look towards Memorial Day to see not just the foreign interference, but domestic receivers of that foreign interference and what they did. And interestingly, I think we're going to find out Governor Polis clemency to Tina because he knows what's coming down the pike. Maybe to save his own skin, maybe to help Colorado not suffer some worse fate. And Tina, the clemency occurred today. She's going to be released 1 June. But in your neck of the woods, down where you are, what president in a Southeast Asian country who had also been trying to fight for free and fair elections and exposing it, was put in prison, was just released? South Korea. That president was released. So you're seeing this pattern of things occurring. And then finally, for accountability, and I know Juan will probably echo this, it's going to start with Main Justice and Quinones down in the Southern District of Florida, down in, Fort Pierce, I believe. But I think rapidly it will transition into a military-style thing. And again, folks, if you watch a live stream for our event or you come to the summit, you'll see Professor Clements actually articulate that in a very elegant way on how that needs to get to a military solution. Again, he was a former prosecutor, a defense attorney, a constitutional attorney professor at a university. You cannot get to the scale you need to in our normal justice system. And I'll leave it with this. It was on a Hannity show now probably 3.5 years ago. And you had Chris Miller, who was at that time when Trump's first time, he was the acting secretary of then defense. And you had Cash Patel on. Cash made a comment that this only gets solved in non-Article 3 courts. Chris Miller was shaking his head up and down. Hannity, to mix metaphors, didn't see the pitch since the first quarter. So it's coming. I think you're seeing it starting. And I would look towards Memorial Day for some revelations on significant foreign interference and intrusion into our election and the domestics who enabled that.
Great information. Thank you, Matt. And real quick before we move through the panel, any updates on the media center becoming active at GITMO?
I haven't heard anything directly, but I'll tell you what's interesting. Sometimes you look for what's happening and you look for information. Isn't it interesting that GITMO's gotten Cuba? It's gotten quiet. And who was just in Cuba? Radcliffe.
That's right.
Right? And folks have told me, some sources, that a GITMO style effort isn't going to happen until Cuba is solved, if you will. And it makes it so much more easy with better relations with Cuba. And I just find it interesting. When's the last time a CIA director, not that I'm a big Radcliffe fan necessarily, but quite significant, he was down talking to his counterparts in Cuba?
Interesting. I have a different military panel I host also, and I had raised to them in a previous episode the subject of Cuba, that to me it looks like, for lack of a better term, it's up for grabs with the transition since Venezuela, and asked them if Cuba would be, added to the list of states, or is it a controlled territory? And the consensus seemed to indicate it's sort of a territory that we've got control over, and we'll see how it plays out. But you raised a great point there about the media center and the further activation and disclosure from GITMO depending on what happens with the nation, the island nation itself. Interesting. Captain Pete, sir, if you want to take on this subject, we're discussing. Just listen, General Holt said we don't have time to wait to 2046 to get this done in the civilian courts. So this is a military operation, as Ratcliffe and Cash Patel alluded to, as Matt shared with us. What's your take on this whole bundle of justice and trigger dates and so forth and so on? Are we making progress? How does it all play out?
Well, John, I think we are making progress, and to use military terms, since I do believe that military is the only solution. That typically what's done in building up a war plan is you have what's called a tip fit, or a time phase force deployment, where forces are built up in the region. There's an intel prep of the battlefield that's conducted. And all that is a lot of research, and it can seem very painstaking and slow as all that happens. But it's necessary. And then at the most opportune time for us, a rapid strike occurs. And typically in a rapid strike, you take down their eyes and ears first. Matt knows well about that, as the Prowler would go in and they would take down the radar sites, and other non-kinetic actions would happen to take down the enemy's eyes and ears and cripple them, so that when our forces go in, they're under the least a bit of threat. And I think the same thing is happening here. And I know at times I struggle with being impatient. When are we going to see something? When are we going to see something? But I do believe a lot of this is build up to a rapid strike. The other thing I think is important contextually, and I believe that a large fraction of our government is complicit. So with that, getting back to Matt's beautiful airplane analogy, how do you fix the airplane? Can you imagine somebody hanging off a wing doing 450 knots trying to fix an engine? It's almost comical, but that's really where we are. How do you address fixing our government with so much criminal behavior happening in the ranks? Difficult proposition. So in my assessment, a rapid strike is the only way to do it, clean and swift.
Wow. Thank you very much. I hope our audience understands this esteemed panel and the decades of incredible intel and combat-related experience and so forth that this panel has. This is an important broadcast and should be listened to very closely. Thank you, sir, for that. We've got, is Juan O'Savin still with us, to my producer? Okay, if Juan returns back, we'll have Juan weigh in on this subject. Sure hope we can hear from Juan. But I need to move on just the same. So we'll go back to the top of the panel with, there we go. Okay, with General Blaine Holt. Okay, final question to the panel. We are clearly, and the theme has been woven out throughout, unavoidable. We are in a spiritual war between good and evil, between God and the demonic forces. How will this nation's call to prayer and rededication to God impact things moving forward as the 4th of July is now drawing near? How do you see this playing out, General Holt?
Yeah, so Scripture's pretty clear on this. If a nation is not filled with repentance, it will fall. Then God will not look upon us with favor. And I'm encouraged from the aspect that, and especially amongst our young generations, churches across this nation, I travel all the time, are just flowing over. People are coming back to a relationship with their Creator because this is what makes sense. And, we talk all the time about this recent incarnation. When I say recent, I'm talking 300 years. The recent incarnation of the British Empire that really was the fall of Rome, that really was the rise of the Venetians, that really was the conquering of the Dutch and the Netherlands and the Dutch East Indies Company, that really was the 9 Years' War, that really was the British Empire and the financialists who have sought control and enslavement. And these people in this enemy, they are the most well endowed. They make Elon Musk look like a pauper. They are the 13 wealthiest families. There's more now They have trillions, they have power, and they're used to wielding it. And they rig every game that you can rig. And yet, here we are, just like in Sam Adams' day, a scrappy people, loves our God, loves our liberty, and knows when it's time to push back. It's instinctually an American trait. And we are many and they are few. And what I would say is it's very possible that this 4th of July, and maybe it'll take a little longer, but it's very possible that this 4th of July will actually be celebrating the true ending of the American Revolutionary War. And won't that be something for our grandkids and beyond? Like Ben Franklin said, it's a republic if you can keep it. Well, we didn't ask for this, but it has fallen to our shoulders. So will we keep it? And I think repentance in this spiritual battle is a very good idea.
So well said. Thank you. Matt Mack, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Mack, if you care to weigh in on this rededication to God, the impact, and big announcements on the 4th of July.
It is. We've got a dear friend, certainly I know Pete knows him, Mark Cook, very logical thinker, always looks for root cause analysis. And Mark has said, hey, yeah, the root cause analysis of the conundrum win is the spiritual battle. And I truly believe that. And citing the scripture again, as General Holt, Christ, God said, "Turn the nation, turn your eyes towards me, turn your face towards me, and I will bless you." Right, to come back to me. And I think that's what we're seeing in our country in a large way. And just as a personal example, John, show that prayer works. You probably, the audience is familiar with Jim Hoft and Joe Hoft, twin brothers. Jim started the Gateway Pundit about the same time that Floyd Brown started Western Journal, and Andrew Breitbart started Breitbart. Jim had some issues with a heart, a valve that was faulty, and he needed surgery. And we were all worried about Jim Hoft, and surgery went well. But as Joe was waiting for that, Joe lives down. Joe had a stroke, and right side got paralyzed, and he started driving himself to the hospital. Wife met him halfway there, and he got there in time. My point is, many of us prayed for him, for Joe Hoft as well. His brother's doing well from his surgery, the open heart surgery. That prayer has resulted, my belief, and now Joe is leaving the hospital and the rehab center tomorrow. And he is 4 out of 5 on functionality. It had affected his right side with his right leg and foot. He's about 3.5 now with his right arm and right hand. He is right-handed. But he was on our call. We have a weekly coalition call for election integrity every Friday. It starts at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Joe came on, and thank God, he didn't have any cognitive damage, no damage to his be able to speak. It was just on his right side. And the vital signs are better than they've ever seen with anybody ever having a stroke. And he was choking up on the call because he said prayer works. Turning our faith, turning our eyes, turning our belief, our hearts back to God works in a singular way, John, and it works as a nation.
Thank you very much, Matt, and we certainly wish the Hoft brothers the very best. All right, taking our final question to our final panelist, if you will. Again, to remind you, Captain Pete, how will this nation's call to prayer and redirection to God impact things moving forward as the 4th of July is now drawing near? How would you like to close this panel discussion out on that subject?
John, it's been a spiritual battle from the beginning. I've been recently contemplating the fact that Satan was kicked out of heaven for rebelling. So the rebel was sent where? He was sent to the earth. When was he sent there? Well, he was sent there before man, us, were created in his image, in God's image. So he sent his very prized creation, us, into the very place that he sent the rebel. Interesting to think about that, right? And then he said to Adam, rule over the earth and subdue it. Every creeping thing, of course, the enemy came in as a serpent, a creeping thing. So it is our responsibility to rule over the enemy. Well, we don't do that in our own strength because we listened to the enemy when he said, did God really say? Right? We were deceived in that. And so, we've been deceived ever since. And the enemy hasn't changed his tactics. He's still a deceiver. So the key thing is, do we trust God? Do we believe what he says to be true is true? And that with the Spirit of God in us, we can defeat the devil. It is a spiritual battle, and it is a battle of eternal life versus eternal death, right? In accepting Christ. And it's not complex. All you have to do is look at the thief on the cross. The thief, and both Matt and General Holt talked about repentance. The thief on the cross, right, didn't have a long dissertation that he gave Jesus on all the things that he did wrong. Didn't detail them, nor did Jesus ask for him to repent for every single one of the things he did. Didn't even ask him about why he was up there on the cross. He simply said, today you will be with me in paradise, because the thief said, would you forgive me? That's all it took. And that is power. And that's the battle that we're in. It's the battle for the very souls of God's prized creation, us. And, a lot of the things that we've been talking about are manifestations of that battle. This battle is a spiritual heavenly battle, but it manifests itself here on earth in oftentimes very painful ways. But we can take authority because Jesus he said, I have all authority, right? So we appeal to him, right, in repentance and say, forgive me for where I've messed up. And as a nation, we appeal to God to say, we've messed up, right? And just like the thief on the cross, God is ready to forgive. He is faithful and just to forgive us and cleanse us. And that's how we're going to move forward.
Well, thank you, Captain Pete. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Matt Mack, and thank you, Brigadier General Blaine Holt, for your time, your expertise, your commentary and analysis on this incredible time in history. And yes, in God we trust. I can't thank our panel enough for your time and expertise. And on behalf of patriots across this country, I salute you, gentlemen, for your service in and out of uniform, for keeping us accurately informed and helping to keep this country safe. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next month on Eyes on GITMO. I'll be right back.
Don't miss this month's live Patriot Q&A hour as John Michael Chambers hosts our Patriot Power guest, Juan O. Saban. Get your questions answered. Mark your calendars. May 28, 2026, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time sharp. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com and click on the Premium Portal Sign-Up tab. Enter your password and you're in. Not a JMC Broadcasting Premium member yet? You could be. Simply click on the Premium Portal Sign-Up tab. Enter your info, and that's it. John and Juan. Looking forward to answering your questions for the solid hour. See you there. Where we go one, we go all. The controlled demolition of the current financial system and restructure is happening right before our eyes. The current supremacy war is heating up. New tax policies, ending the Federal Reserve and the IRS as we know it. New banking system. How about the US dollar? Are we returning to a gold-backed currency, ultimately en route to a digital currency, a stable coin into an encrypted QFS? By reading the pages of this book and taking advantage of the opportunities within, you will become informed, empowered, and connected with the confidence to act. Saving America and protecting your wealth are not spectator sports. Will you be on the wrong side of history? It requires effort and due diligence, then action on your part. Action changes things. It's time. As we witness the greatest financial reset in history, prepare for a new era free from the shadow and control of the cabal. The future is bright, and it belongs to us, not the corrupt elite. We are mid-transitioning. We've not yet arrived. What's occurring during this transition? Danger. This is the danger zone on the economic and financial battlefield. There is tremendous opportunity to prosper. Strategies, models, and proposed solutions will be defined within the pages of this book. This is indeed a must-read book which should be shared with others. The Global Financial Reset, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. Pick up your copy today of this 5-star rated book at Amazon.com.
I've got some closing announcements and commentary before we conclude this broadcast. I want to thank you all for being here with us. First off, we had some tech issues and scheduling issues on getting 107 into the broadcast. Our apologies for that, but you can join us May 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on Premium Portal, and get up close and personal with 107. He'll be there for 1 solid hour to answer your questions live in our private Zoom room. You got to register for that. Premium Portal, jmcbroadcasting.com. Also, I want to make mention, Mack is with the PPN network, Patriot Party News Network. You'll want to make sure you follow Matt and his work there, as well as Blaine Holt. We have links up to Blaine's blog under the resource guide, I believe, at jmcbroadcasting.com. There's a link on the resource guide. You can follow Blaine Holt's podcast, very popular, as you can see, also very informative. So those are some quick, scroll down. Let's look for it there. Keep going. Keep going. There it is. Stop. Big. Whoa. Back. Okay. Brigadier General. Hey. Scroll. Thank you. Brigadier General retired Blaine D. Holt, Dangerous Intellectuals. You'll want to follow Blaine's work there. And well, thank you to my 2 producers for the great work you do in helping us broadcast here at JMC Broadcasting. And another announcement, 99% of everything we publish, produce, etc., is free to the public. So you can join us in our free subscription by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com, learn about that, or look at our premium portal. And again, join us for our monthly Patriot Q&A hour with Juan this month. Each month, we have a different power guest. Folks, been a great episode. A lot of good news in this episode. The dangers are there. They've been addressed. They've not been ignored. But I knew this episode was going to take us into the space we arrived at. And all the glory to God. So stay alert, eyes wide open, ears to the ground. Be prayerful, plan and prepare, and continue to do your part. We're almost there. And remember, where we go one, we go all. Be safe, everyone, and may God be with you.